All right, what's up guys? We just got off the court and we were testing the brand new Body Helix FLIK F1. This is a very impressive paddle in a lot of ways, but I am gonna say that I don't think most people should buy this. I think this is gonna be too advanced and probably too hard for most people to use, but we'll break it down and give you our thoughts. All right, the specs will be on screen now if you want them, but the important ones that you need to know are as follows. First, the price is $190 for this paddle, and after discount code PBStudio, that will drop to $171. Next, this is a full foam core construction, EPP, just like many of the other paddles on the market, and it's using a very familiar design. If you're familiar with the Carbon True Foam Genesis, you're gonna see a lot of similarities. First, there are 95 holes in this paddle, and that is the reason it plays as light as it is. The swing weight on my unit was 115, which for an elongated paddle is a very low swing weight. And then the static weight is somewhere around 7.9 ounces. The other thing, if you're looking at the X-ray, that you might notice is that it's using the same style of fiberglass patch for the sweet spot in order to create more pop and power. So looking at the design of this paddle, it definitely feels like a, hey bro, you can copy my homework, just don't make it look identical to mine. But I think with all of the hole placement that they managed to do, reducing the weight for a full foam core paddle is very welcome. One of the paddles we've seen with a lot of these EPP core paddles is that they're just heavy. And this being as light of a swing weight as it is extremely impressive for an elongated paddle. So that's one of the biggest pros of this paddle at the moment. One of the other things I do want to call out is the shorter warranty on this paddle. So a lot of companies are migrating to at least a 1-year warranty with these full foam core paddles, so it is disappointing to see Body Helix do 6 months. I feel like at this point, with most companies migrating to that and them only doing 6 months, it just makes me feel like they're a little unsure about how these are gonna hold up. All right, so now let's talk about what everyone wants to know, and that's how does this paddle play? The main headline you're gonna see about this paddle probably everywhere is that it hits the ball really flippin' hard. And this paddle is one of those paddles that just makes me wonder what the heck PB Core is measuring. To my knowledge, this is right up against the upper limit of PB Core, as are many other power paddles. In fact, there are paddles that aren't overly powerful that are still right up at that limit. But this, to me, hits considerably harder than a Yola Pro 4, which already hits very hard. So if they're in similar territories of PB Core, then I don't know how this passes, or I don't really know what PB Core is measuring. But anyways, this paddle has passed PB Core, so it's good to go. But yeah, when you connect dead center with the sweet spot on this paddle, the ball just flies, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. Even on counters, you can just stick your paddle out and let all the power that someone is giving you and send it right back without much of any effort. You can just flick your wrist or even just hold your paddle, and the pace that the ball comes back at is pretty ridiculous. This is easily up there with the Ripple, and the big advantage that this has over the Ripple is that it's considerably lighter than the Ripple. So that was kind of the main downside of that paddle. Otherwise, it played pretty good. But this has all the benefits of that, feels lighter, doesn't have more of that tingy, stiff feel when you hit the ball. Like, the ball contact off of this feels very nice, so I think that's a big plus. And with this being $100 less than the Ripple, I think for pretty much anyone seeking an overpowered paddle, this is what I would push you towards over the Ripple. Now, while this paddle may hit very hard, and hitting the ball hard is very fun, I think most people outside of advanced players are gonna find that this is very, very hard to use. I have multiple sessions on this paddle at this point. I've played some games, I've drilled with it multiple times, and it's just, I can't figure this paddle out. When I'm dinking, I don't feel confident in any of my dinks. It's very easy to pop it up. It's very easy to overswing and give someone a ball that's very easy to counter or send the ball wide. Even on things like returns, I'm just questioning how hard I should swing. Like, I've played with a lot of power paddles, and even recently I've started gravitating towards them more than I have in the past. But this is one that I just cannot figure out. You go for a mid-court reset, you block the ball and nail that little fiberglass patch, and boom, the ball just goes flying. Now, the question I've been wondering is, why didn't I have this problem on the Carbon True Foam Genesis, since it's using that same fiberglass patch? I think one of the reasons is probably that this paddle only comes in an elongated. I do tend to prefer hybrid or wide body paddles, so I'm sure that's making it harder for me to connect with the sweet spot. The other thing that I noticed is that when you are going outside of that fiberglass patch, you're definitely getting different feedbacks and very different amounts of power from this paddle. While I still think you get a good amount of power when you go outside of it, it just makes it very hard to know what you're gonna get from the paddle. So all around the court, I'm just questioning how hard should I hit this? And I'm really trying to think about hitting the sweet spot more than I usually would. To try and fix some of this issue, because I don't feel like this paddle is overly stable, I did try adding 12 grams of weight down at the throat. And while it felt like it helped the paddle a little bit, ultimately it just didn't really solve the issue for me. So that's why I think, yes, this paddle is probably very fun, and if your only objective is to bang the ball, you like to drive and then crash and end the point, yeah, for that play style, this is probably gonna work well. But if you're someone who doesn't have a very developed soft game, or you're someone who likes kind of more of that hybrid style where you don't mind dinking, working your way up to the kitchen, and you will bang when you have to, I just think this paddle would be too much for that play style, or it would be hard to keep the ball down. Now, if you are a more advanced player, 5.0 plus, and you like that play style, I think this could be a very, very rewarding paddle to play with. One other pro I will give this paddle with a maybe small disclaimer on it is the spin is pretty insane. In my testing, I got 2309 RPM, and I haven't hit RPM that high in quite some time. And the only time, in fact, that I've been able to hit spin like that is on a paddle that had grit that wasn't legal. And this does feel pretty rough, especially if you're comparing it to a Carbon, to a Yola, some of these newer high-end paddles that are coming out, their grit tends to be a little bit smoother. Not really my problem. That's something USAP needs to figure out, but I just thought I'd throw that disclaimer out there because those are numbers that I'm not very used to seeing. However, if everything checks out and it's good to go, yeah, spin is insane on this paddle, and I think people who are able to shape the ball on drives would absolutely love this paddle. Now, as far as feel goes, I do find it to be pretty pleasant. I don't find this paddle overly stiff. It's not too soft. The one characteristic I would say, especially when you're hitting that fiberglass patch, is the ball just comes off very quickly. Like it's just kind of like a boing, it just gets off the face really quickly. It's not like a stiff paddle where it's just immediately off the face and it just felt very harsh. This feels like it absorbs a little more, but still comes off very quickly. It's like I don't know what the word I would use is. It's almost like a very fast trampoline. So it's not like the Arma T where it's super stiff and the ball is just popping off because of that. To me, it feels like a trampoline where it just goes really quick. But overall, I would call this a satisfying foam core paddle to use. Probably one of my favorites in terms of how the ball comes off the face. But to wrap this up, here's what I would say. If you're a banger and your only objective is to hit the ball hard, then yeah, you're gonna have fun with this paddle. If you were someone who liked the old Ripple and how light it was and how easy it was to apply pace, this to me is the replacement for that paddle. It doesn't fill the same exact role that the old Beta Ripple did. I do think these feel different, and the old Beta Ripples had larger sweet spots than this, but this is closer than what the new Ripple V2 is, especially because it comes in lighter. But for the rest of everyone who plays pickleball, I'm gonna say probably don't pick this paddle up. I think it's way too much for most people, and I think a lot of people would struggle with their soft game. This is a paddle that, for me personally, I would never take this to a tournament. I feel like I would go down at minimum a quarter duper point using this paddle. But my play style is not one where I'm just trying to bang the ball, start a hands battle, and end the point on a counter. I'm kind of more in that hybrid style where I don't mind playing fast if I have to, but I prefer maybe hitting a drive, then hitting a drop next, working the way up to the kitchen, working the point until I get something that I can put away. But yeah, strengths are, hits very hard, pop is ridiculous off of this, but it is hard to connect with that sweet spot and will definitely be punishing if you miss. So there you guys go. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.